Jolliffe, Associate Director of Waggener Edstrom in the Brussels office. We're here this morning because your company is releasing a report relating to the blogosphere, the online space as it relates to European policy. Would you tell me what you've been looking into?
Well, for us it's an increasingly important subject. I think we all recognise that influence is evolving. Now anyone who has an internet connection can set themselves up as a publisher or a broadcaster, and that has to be significant. So we at Waggener felt that as communications professionals we really needed to try and begin to understand that, because clearly it's not possible to track and monitor absolutely everybody that's blogging or has set themselves up as a commentator. So we thought we needed to try and find a way of beginning to sift through the very long tail that is out there and try and find those who are perhaps the most influential, to try and help the entire public affairs community begin to understand and really take the dimensions of this increasing trend.
As a Brussels-based consultancy, is there an altruistic element to this, or do you think there's business to come in the online space in the future?
Well, I mean, I think it's a fact of life that influence is evolving, that everyone who sets themselves up to advise people needs to be able to take account of it. I think we wanted to be really in at the start of that, and certainly our methodology is something which is tried and tested. We don't say it's the final methodology. I think once something is out there, it's very much in the hands of the entire community. But what we did want to do was to try and push this concept of influence and help the public affairs industry really try and measure its results in a way which has not traditionally been the case, in fact.
Okay, so if you're trying to measure the influence of bloggers in the EU space, what sort of criteria did you use? What sort of questions were you asking?
Yeah. Well, there were a number of gating criteria, of course, to get the survey sample down to a reasonable size. They had to be based in the EU. We were really trying to take the temperature of a really indigenous EU blogging culture. So sites related to .com websites or US sites didn't really feature in the website. Not to say they're not influential in Brussels, but we're really trying to understand the indigenous EU blogging culture. They had to be writing frequently, they had to be writing recently, so not dormant, and they had to be more than somewhat occasional, and of course they had to be writing about EU policy. We weren't really interested, although they're interesting in themselves, but we weren't interested for the purposes of this survey in those people who are kind of writing about the experience of writing about social media in general. This really was a policy-focused survey.
Okay. Now, that being the case, I mean, for example, one of the main players in this space is bloggingportal.eu. I know, because I know the guys that run it, I'm well aware they've got over 500 blogs that are listed. Yes. What sort of size and scale is your report?
Yes. Really? So again, applying the gating criteria, we tried to get down to a manageable survey size. So in the end, we ranked 40 blogs, and we sifted through a good deal more than that to get down to that. Blogging portal is important, but it's also important to mention the Blogactiv as well. I think those two portals together are making a very important contribution to the whole blogging culture in the EU. They have different models, of course. Blogging portal is much more about tagging the individual stories and helping people navigate, whereas Blogactiv is, we found, providing a very valuable first platform for those people who want to set themselves up as a commentator but don't perhaps have much technical expertise or know-how. There's a ready-made portal for them to set themselves up. And I don't think it's any coincidence that some 7 or 8 of the blogs that we ranked actually reside there and cover different themes and policy areas.
Okay, well, obviously we're very pleased to hear that. The survey results haven't been announced yet. That's going to be in the next hour or two. From here, what sort of role do you think a survey like this can play in the future? Is it going to be an annual survey? Is it going to be less, more frequent?
I think it probably needs to be more frequent. The reality is that blogs come and go with alarming frequency. So already I'm sure some of the blogs that we have ranked, the individuals behind them have taken decisions to relocate or post less or tweet instead. So it's a highly immovable feast. We do need to kind of keep on top of that. So then again, it's a balance of effort. Probably this is something we could do every 6 months or so. But there are some important findings. I think what we found is that, particularly with respect to the United States, there's much, much less sector-specific, policy-specific blogs. What we do have in the EU is a number of generalist blogs, But there's still a massive gap with the US, where the blogging culture is highly plugged in to the lobbying world.
What sort of levels of influence do you think these particular bloggers have? I mean, is it marginal influence? Is it significant? What were your thoughts?
I think that's something which we still really need to get better at evaluating. I think what we're proposing is a first model for assessing influence. So we combined 4 different criteria. The reach, so the audience, the content that had to be relevant, the buzz, so how much kind of pickup there was, and also the target audience, so are they actually being read by the right people. So put those together and you can begin to approximate things, and the results feel about right from what you might intuitively imagine. In fact, I don't think there'll be too many surprises in the results, but it's nice to have some kind of factual underpinning to the whole survey.
Do you feel there was one or more than one policy area that's specifically focused by the blogosphere? Because clearly there's an awful lot of areas that EU affairs relates to. Is there an area that the blogosphere is really strong?
Possibly the technology space is the one, information technology is the one which is growing the most. For legislative reasons, regulatory reasons, it's perhaps more difficult for the healthcare sector to pipe up. But technology and certainly energy and the environment are areas which are growing, and we saw quite a few blogs there.
John Jolliffe, thank you very much for your time this morning.